Hi, this is Lynn from FromOurBookshelf.com, and we love nonfiction in our family. The whole family really enjoys reading nonfiction. We read nonfiction, history, biographies, memoirs, all kinds of things. Christian nonfiction, we just love nonfiction in our house. And a few years ago, I needed to kind of something to challenge me for my reading life, and I challenged myself to read a nonfiction book for every state in the U.S. And I loved the challenge. It took me a couple years to do it. I didn't have any set rules on the challenge. I just wanted to read a book set in or about a person from every state in the U.S. And that challenge really challenged me outside my comfort zone. I picked up books I never would have picked up otherwise. I wanted to learn about the state and the people from the states and different time periods, and it ended up accomplishing exactly that. It is a challenge a few readers have joined me on, and I love sharing about the challenge and how it inspired me to read more nonfiction and just to pick up books outside of my normal reading comfort zone. So today I wanted to share a few of my favorite books from that challenge. You can find the whole list of books that I read at FromOurBookshelf.com. Just search nonfiction books for every state and you can find the whole list. I ended up reading, I think, 50 some books because I read one for every state. A few states, Oregon, California, I think Texas, had 2 books because I couldn't decide what I wanted to read. So I'm going to go ahead and start. We're going to start with a book about Oregon. I grew up in Oregon, and I ended up reading 2 books about the state of Oregon. One was the Oregon Trail, and the second one was Shoe Dog, which is the story of Nike, written by Phil Knight. This might seem like a little bit of a strange book to read for the state of Oregon, but Nike is headquartered in Beaverton, Oregon. I grew up about an hour from the Nike headquarters in the northwest corner of Oregon. This is the suburb of Portland that Nike headquarters is in, and this book really covers a lot of Oregon history during the 60s, 70s, 80s, even into the early 90s, and a lot of the culture of the outdoors and sports and the University of Oregon and Portland, and just how Phil Knight built Nike and just the journey of Nike. And this is a business book, so not just if you're not reading a nonfiction book for every state, this is a great business book. I have recommended this to multiple people. My husband's read it, my daughter's read it, I've read it. We love this book. Shoe Dog, Phil Knight. This was my book for Oregon. And this one, Devil in the White City, I read this for my Illinois books. It's about murder and mayhem in Chicago during the World's Fair. I'm not, I like true crime, but I don't like super graphic true crime. This was a little bit graphic for me, but I still really enjoyed it. I have read a couple books by Eric Larson. I have not read all his books. He's one of those authors. I will probably read every book he writes because I love his writing. I love how he shares history, and I recommended this to my husband after I read it. So this was my Chicago book, Devil in the White City, and I really enjoyed this one. This one, The Pact, is a book I never would have picked up if it had not been for this challenge. I don't think I ever would have read this. This was for New Jersey. It is about 3 men who are from Newark, New Jersey, and they made a pact to all become doctors. And it is their story of overcoming odds, of growing up in a really rough area and from bad backgrounds, and how they overcame it with hard work and the help of a lot of people to all 3 become doctors. They stood by their pact and challenges, and they thought about giving up, but this pact they made inspired them to keep going, and they all 3 became doctors. 2 became medical doctors, 1 became a dentist, and they have gone on to inspire others to overcome the odds. They've gone back into the area they grew up in and practiced medicine and given back to their community. It's an inspiring book. This is one I never would have picked up if it had not been for this challenge. The Pact was for New Jersey. This one is Once Upon a Town. It is about a small town in Nebraska. I picked this up at a used bookstore when I saw it was about Nebraska. I thought it would be a great book for my my challenge. This is about a small town in Nebraska who was, they had a train stop during World War II that stopped in their town. And this small town took, during the World War II, when they didn't have a lot, it was farmers and farm communities and small businesses, and just people within their town would give to the military when they stopped in their town. There was a train stop that was not very long, and during that time they would provide meals and just all kinds of things for the military traveling through during World War II from coast to coast. There was a train stop for people traveling to either coast for training or on leave going home, and it became a really well-known stop that World War II military loved to stop in their town. And it shares stories of people of marriages and how they met, and just is just an inspirational story about World War II and how a small town and a small group of people can make a huge difference in someone's life. This next one, The Boys in the Boat, I read for my Washington book, and this is a great story during the Depression of how a group of men became Olympic champions, and just how they overcame the odds during the Depression. I went ahead and read this for my Washington book because, like I said, I grew up in Oregon. I'm very familiar with the Pacific Northwest, and this book covered a lot about Washington history during that time in the Depression, about the weather, the culture, the logging industry. These were rough and tough men who overcame the odds and worked hard to do great things. And this is an inspiring story. I love this one. This is one that my husband's read, my daughter's read. I think my son read it. We all loved this one. Boys in the Boat was a great book for Washington. This was a fun book to read. After reading a couple really serious books for the challenge, I needed something lighter and fun, and Whiskey in a Teacup by Reese Witherspoon was just what I needed. I read it for Tennessee. It is part cookbook, part memoir, part sharing Tennessee. It is a fun book. It's a great book for a cook, and it also worked perfect for my book about Tennessee. This one is Bad Blood. I read this for my book for California. It is about the tech world, and it's got true crime. There's a medical world. I read this. I had my husband read it. It is a fascinating story, modern day. I think it takes place in 2010-ish, maybe a little bit later, 2012, somewhere in there. I don't know the exact date. But it was a good book for California, but this is also just a great, like, true crime medical type book. We've recommended this to multiple people. It is a fascinating story, and you're gonna like, wow, I didn't realize that happened. I think there might be a movie being made on this, but I'm not sure. Fascinating story and book. And the last one I'm going to talk about is my book for Oklahoma. One of my books for Oklahoma. I actually read 2 books for Oklahoma, and this is Killers of the Flower Moon by David Grann. This book, I think my father-in-law first gave it to us. My daughter's read it. My father-in-law's read it. My husband's read it. I've read it. We all loved it. We live in Oklahoma. This is a story that we really did not know about the Osage Nation, the birth of the FBI. It deals with crime and murder and just cover up, and just an amazing but horrific story of things that happen within the Osage Nation. And this is an important part of history. I am so glad David Grann wrote this book and shared it. I think it's been being made into a movie. Hope the movie's great. We went and heard David Grann speak. We went to Tulsa to hear him a year or 2 ago. Really enjoyed it. This is a fascinating story. If you love true crime, even if you're not doing the nonfiction books for every state challenge, if you love true crime and type books, this is a great read. Killers of the Flower Moon, and it was an excellent book for the state of Oklahoma. So those are just a few of my favorite books. I ended up having just a couple books I didn't really like, but overall I liked pretty much all the books I read for the challenge and shared. You can find the complete list of books that I read for my nonfiction books for every state challenge on FromOurBookshelf.com. Just search nonfiction books for every state. And I know that this is not a challenge everyone will do, but I hope it inspires you to pick up some more nonfiction books.